Ladies and gentlemen, if any of you like to follow sports, then you are probably well aware of the changing of the generations. Basically, you watch an athlete or a team for 10 to 15 years, and all of a sudden, everybody's old, everybody retires, and you find yourself a little bit lost. Happened to me with the Yankees baseball team. Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, Mariano Rivera, Jorge Posada, all these players retired, and I haven't really been the same type of fan since. It happens all over the place. Basketball, right? Tennis. First it was Federer, then it was Nadal, and now question marks about Novak Djokovic. Now, chess is an individual sport, and there is currently a tournament going on in Poland. It's currently May 2024. And Magnus Carlsen is the only player in the event over the age of 30. I mean, he's so old compared to the rest of the field. There's like cobwebs growing all over him. Jokes aside, it's a fascinating event. You got a lot of young players and question marks about who is going to be the leader of the next generation, who is going to challenge Magnus and defeat him. And today he was defeated. And today he reflected on his own play by saying that he, quote, sucked. And that his nervous system collapsed. I'm not sure we've ever heard that from him before in an interview. And it's going to be very interesting to see how he, and if he, is able to roar back and make a comeback tomorrow. Also, as a bonus for clicking on this video, I'm going to give you an update about somebody who is absolutely destroying this tournament, who you might have never heard of until this year. Okay, let's begin. I've got so many games with Magnus and the next generation. He played 4 teenagers today. Here we go. After this game, Magnus Carlsen said his nervous system had collapsed. After this game, Magnus got up and almost slapped himself. He slapped his hand, but it was crazy. So, he's playing against Pragnananda. He's lost to Prag before, and he also has said glowing things about Prag. And he plays a Caro-Kann. D4, D5. Exchange Caro-Kann is what Prag opts for. Bishop D3, Knight C6, and a very solid system, pawn to E6. And the idea of pawn to E6 is that this bishop waits. It's going to have its moment. But for now, it's going to wait. You're going to develop the bishop to D6, and you're going to put the knight on the E7 square. It's a very, very solid system. White opts for a dark squared bishop exchange because that leaves black with a pretty bad light squared bishop. Knight to F3, castles, and not much happens, but Magnus begins preparing various things with this move F6. Now, this is a blitz game. They are playing 5-minute blitz, which with bonus time, which for them is like ages of time. Here comes Prag advancing on the queen side, rook E3, queen E1, and Prag just targeting that pawn, but Magnus doing a very nice job defending it. A5, knight F5, puts the rook back, and again, both sides maneuvering, relatively balanced position, and then Prag plays rook A6 and H4. So he's trying to attack Magnus on both sides of the board, but it's clearly not really working. I mean, he's down a lot on time, and it's going to be really difficult for him to break through in this position. But he keeps on trying. The rook goes to B7. Now we have knight takes F5. A lot of stuff here. A lot of stuff targeting a lot of other stuff. Pawn take rook A8. I mean, my goodness, look at that. You can't take the queen. The rook is hitting the rook. Now rook BB8, queen A1. So Prag now gets a little objective from chess.com. This game was not played on chess.com, but putting all your pieces on the A file. All right, that's what Prag has accomplished. Now a handful of them get traded, and I mean this position is just equal. If anybody is asking questions, maybe it is white. Knight D2, knight E4, fantastic stuff here, and now we have bishop versus knight. But as it so happens, this knight jump was incorrect, and Prag now starts doing to Magnus exactly what Magnus would do to other people. White has a little bit of activity, black is very solid, and Prag takes with the bishop and plays this really nice idea, knight to F1. And now you start seeing the difference. The difference is that the knight is going to have access to dark squares where it will pressure light squares, and there's nothing you can do about it. F5, G3, H6. And Prag is just going to try to secure himself some positioning. Now Magnus starts playing G5, really aggressive stuff. Take, knight E3, but his king is very open, and they're both at 10 seconds. And remember, this is the game that Magnus said his nervous system collapsed, like it failed. And that's what blitz is. And I mean, we've seen for years Magnus at the ultra highest level. By the way, you're going to see a little cut here. Hi, that's the magic of video editing. You see, I was analyzing the game and I accidentally pressed the button that fast forwards to the end of the game. So I didn't want to spoil it. And as I was saying before I rudely interrupted myself by pressing the wrong key on the keyboard, we've seen Magnus have a fantastic nervous system at the ultra elite highest classical events. But you also have to have a really good nervous system in Rapid and Blitz when you make decisions with 10 seconds on the clock. And, well, Magnus is going to have to do that, right? And he brings his king, Prog pushes, DC, and I mean, this position is very, very, very complicated. Queen f6, he is defending himself, but that is an inaccuracy. Actually, it would have been better to offer a queen trade and try to defend the endgame, but now Magnus is under massive pressure. The pawn gets to d6, the knight gets to b6, the king is out in the open, and Prog wins a bishop. Just straight up wins a bishop. So Magnus needed to trade the queens there. He didn't do it, and the problem is that, yes, you get to take back the knight, but then you lose all of this. So technically, he didn't win the bishop, but he won the bishop for enough time that this is a completely winning endgame for white. It's just, you're going to win the other pawn, you're going to push your g-pawn, white's king is completely safe, and Prog is a very, very good player. Maybe I would screw this up against Magnus, but not Prog. He walks his king to the other side of the board, that's it. He's just going. You can't stop him, you can't give him any checks. King makes it all the way down. I think here there was another moment that Magnus could have saved the game, but he doesn't. King f8, and g8 is just a queen, and Magnus resigns. It's crazy. This is a 17-time world champion. I think he's a 6-time Blitz champion of the world. It's crazy stuff. And he said after this game his nervous system collapsed, but what does that really mean, right? I mean, okay, he says the nervous system collapsed, but he's freaking Magnus Carlsen. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he says a lot of things. Oh my God, Nordjrbek, Abdusatorov playing a Scandinavian defense. Look at this. This is why I love Blitz. In Blitz, you can get away with playing whatever you want. Now, he doesn't play the Gotham Scandi, which is just the main line, and then putting a bishop on f5. He plays queen d6. And here the critical approach by white is exactly this move, knight b5. I mean, black can also play like a6, g6. But if you allow the knight to go to b5, he will. And I mean, this is just Nordjrbek's just going to get punished for playing like this. I mean, you can't play the Scandinavian. There's a reason the Scandinavian is good for 99% of the chess players, but not for the top 1%. And Magnus will start maneuvering, and you see he keeps this game nice and easy, nice and chill. Woes! Or maybe not. And Nordjrbek suddenly also has a better position against Magnus. Bishop f1, rook d8. But okay, it's still very complicated. It's still a blitz game. A nice idea by Magnus. He clears the pawn out. He has a passed c-pawn. Back to business. Now, Nordjrbek playing very fast. That's a fork. But the rook is also hanging on a8. So the rook moves. This rook moves. And actually, if you count the pawns, Magnus is a pawn down. So he's going to have to play defense in this game. But the game is not going to be defensive for very long because it absolutely explodes. Queen b5, and all of a sudden, white is winning again. Queen d6. Queen e8 check. Oh my. Oh my goodness, queen h8 is on the way, the queen is hanging, what are you gonna do? Queen d4. Now, in this position, Magnus is winning, and he finds it. He locks the king in. g6 is the only move. Pawn takes g6, king takes g6, completely winning position, double check by Magnus, king goes to f6. Now he defends his knight, it's not the best move, but he has 10 seconds, are you really gonna blame him? Knight here, knight to g4 check. King goes back to g7, Magnus takes on d6, and now Nordjrbek just goes all in himself, ripping open the position of the white king. Knight to e5, disconnecting again the queen from the position. Knight takes f1. Magnus is winning. He's winning. He's got to take a moment here. He could give a check. He does. The king goes here. Now, if he takes the knight, okay, if he takes the knight, black will go to, like, say here, at the very least, you take the knight on f1. Now, if you take it with the rook, there is rook g7 check, but you take it with the king, and you're up a knight. You are up a knight, no questions asked, there are no checks. So Magnus has queen g6, king goes here, he could take a knight for free, he gives a check once, he repeats the position, he could still take the knight, but it's better to obviously take with a check, but he checks again and he hangs his queen! He's just like you and me. Gods do bleed. What? I mean, but I get it. I mean, this happens to all of us. But when it happens to Magnus or guys like Hikaru, I mean, you just sit there like, what? Because queen f5 and king f1. I mean, it's yes. Rook f1, rook g7, you have to see doesn't work. Because then but king f1, there's no more checks. I mean, next he goes, queen e6, queen g6, like he'll find a way. Trust me. Rook e3, rook g6, he's going to find a way. but he plays queen g6, and he got up. He couldn't believe it. He got up, he slapped his hand, and oh my God, it was insane. It was insane, and it didn't get any better. It didn't get any better. In the very next game against Gukesh, Gukesh is struggling. Gukesh is not a rapid and blitz specialist. He is currently, after 4 out of 5 days, he is in the bottom spot in the position. He's in last. He's in last place. He had a decent rapid, but then he lost. He went on multiple losing streaks in the blitz. And in this game, I mean, Magnus, this was a couple of rounds later. It wasn't exactly, and Magnus played a, kind of a wild opening, and then it became a Catalan. But from the opening, Gukesh just had a fantastic position. He broke the center open, and he was -1.5 and up a minute. It did not get better for the GOAT, which is wild. It is wild to see Magnus in this type of form. And the crazy thing is, like I said, every tournament he does this to us. Magnus is in a point of his career where he plays so infrequently. He plays like once every 3 months. He needs to wake up. Like, the only way Magnus improves during a tournament is getting punched in the face. Not actually, nobody has, not that I know of. Although he did have a world championship where he had a black eye. I think it was from soccer, though. But, like, he doesn't play that much, so he needs to kind of wake up. And so, in this position, Gukesh just had an excellent position from the opening, bishop to g6, but then he allowed Magnus back in the game. He spent a little bit of time here, and I guess he missed something, because instead of attacking Magnus's queen, if he just brought his rook and slowly improved his position, maybe he would have went on to convert. But suddenly Magnus wakes up, begins consolidating, goes directly for an endgame, and he's like, in the words of Shaquille O'Neal, barbecue chicken alert. Barbecue chicken alert. Rook d8, rook f4, rook a4, and now, I mean, this is excellence. My boy playing Chutes and Ladders. Any of you ever play that game? Or Snake, the game where you go like back on the days of the mobile flip phone. I'm talking to like a bunch of 12-year-olds, right? They all have iPhone 15s. A6, B5, and I mean, just like a surgeon carves up the position on the queen side, making it look easy. Don't give Magnus pawns together like this. It wasn't perfect. They got 30 seconds on the clock. What are you gonna do about it? But once he got the pawns rolling, there was nothing Gukesh could do. Look at this. I mean, masterful. It just like it. You don't even know what hit you. I mean, it's like hydraulic press. You know, everything explodes at the bottom. So he's back in form. Okay, and how would he do against the last teenager that he played? He plays a London against the London. All right, this is typical stuff. And this is against Arjin Erigaisi. They get a little bit weird with it early on. Nothing too crazy. Very solid position. And the thing is, Magnus can win these positions with white. But can he win these positions with black? He doesn't go first. He's got a little bit passive position. By the way, e5 is met with queen b4. If anybody's confused why there's not a fork, it's still the right move, e5, but not for obvious reasons. And in this game, you know, Arjin was very happy to just kind of put a little bit of pressure on Magnus in the middle game with queen and knight and a little bit of pawn structure. But as you can see, I mean, Magnus not melting anybody, you know? I mean, these young guys, they come to fight, and here he kind of tricks Arjin. So this one was sort of smooth sailing for Magnus. But then he missed another chance. He was very upset with himself. This was in the interview afterwards. He completely took over this game in the queen and knight endgame. He went up a pawn, and right here, he has queen to d2. Now, if I asked you a question here, how do you enable the move queen to d2? You answer, all right? You could say it out loud, but I don't hear you. It's not... You want to go here. This is protecting that. Very simple, right? g4. Right? g4. That's what happened in the game. But in this position, for whatever reason, Magnus did not just go for the kill. Here, maybe he has some queen d1, king a2, knight d2. This is mate. Like, knight h4, queen d2, queen d1, knight d2. I mean, you just swarm the king. The only thing you gotta worry about is not getting perpetual checked. But there is none. And Magnus, he didn't go for it. He didn't go for it. Like, he's still better, but he has to win an endgame. And he was so mad at himself. He was so mad at himself because now it's a draw! He had made, I mean, he had a direct line of assault. He had queen d2, queen d1, knight d2. And he himself is saying, like, low on the clock, he's just not himself right now, right? Now we have an equal endgame, and but you know what's crazy about this game? Arjin defended so well. Arjin goes to an endgame where it's queen and pawn, but you got no time, and you're playing the man who literally invented endgames. And yeah, you could try to hold this. We're not gonna get into the theory of the queen endgames here. There is so much theory in queen endgames. It's probably worse to study queen endgames than organic chemistry. Some of you have probably studied AP chemistry, IB chemistry, some advanced form of chemistry. Yeah, it's like this is harder. All right. And Magnus finds a way to win it. We're not gonna pretend and sit here like we would have drawn this game. He does win it in the end, and he is in second place in this event. I told you at the beginning of the video I had a bonus for you. Well, here's the bonus. A man is winning this tournament who has re-emerged onto the chess scene like a movie villain, like a protagonist, antagonist, whatever you want to call him, hero, villain. His name is Wei Yi from China. He is 24 years old. 24. Dude is so young. And he hasn't played chess a whole lot. The world champion is Ding Liren, but he's like 31 or 32. After 4 days of action, Wei Yi is winning this tournament by 2.5 points, and then it's Magnus, and then it's like the squad. Then it's like the squad. 14.5, 14, 13, they're all doing the rest. Gukesh struggling, we'll talk about that later. Wei Yi won the Tata Steel tournament this year, the classical chess tournament, and he is obliterating people. He's obliterating people in incredible ways. He is 2.5 points up with 9 rounds to go. Tomorrow they will finish the tournament. We're gonna see what happens. But Wei Yi doesn't have a chance to just win the tournament. He has a chance to set a record. The record of points scored in one of these events is 27 points. All right? Because the rapid counts for double. Very confusing system. Wei Yi has the chance to break it. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Here's a couple of games from Wei Yi, who has 20.5. All right? Here's a game that he played against Vincent Keimer. Remember, this is Blitz. Wei Yi, one of the most aggressive, dynamic, interesting players, loves imbalances, all right? But he's good positionally, he's good defensively, he has great tactical instincts. Look at this position. Knight e5, bishop b4, right? Opening up an attack here and here. Watch as my man Wei Yi uses his opponent's forward momentum to boom! Bishop f6. You wanna attack me? You wanna attack my rook? Who's gonna deal with this first? Make a move. Queen f6, right? My queen is hanging, my rook is hanging, but guess what? So is yours. And I got even worse news for you. I'm gonna take your rook. Like if you play queen to d8 in this position, I'm going to take, and then do the math. I'm up a pawn. I escaped up a pawn. You gave me a pawn. So bishop f6, knight to g4, queen f4, and he still does it. He gives up the queen for the 2 rooks. Knight comes back to h2. He's gonna kick out this bishop. He's gonna put the knight on f3. He's gonna put the rook up, and he's going to try to just get rid of the light squares in the black position. Knight e5. Look at the time. 2 minutes for Wei Yi. Incredible instincts. Doesn't even have to calculate all that much. Knight e2, queen f6, f4, kicking out the knight. The knight goes back. Now we go g4. We're trying to trap this bishop. Vincent Keimer has 9 seconds. You can't figure this position out in 9 seconds. It's not possible. Your hand and brain don't link up fast enough. He goes queen c6. Wei Yi locks the bishop in. It's dead. Knight c5, he takes. Bishop d5, and my man just wants to go right there. Bishop goes to d2, rook f1, knight e6. Whoops. But I told you it was already impossible to defend this position. Wei Yi melting his opponents in the blitz. Tactical position, imbalanced position, Wei Yi is good at, but Wei Yi is also a very, very tenacious defender, putting a lot of difficult situations in front of his opponent. This is a semi-Slav, all right? It's like a Slav that only squats halfway. DC, b5, very complicated position, very historic position. A lot of games have been played in this line. Knight f6, and in this game, Anish kind of trades off the knights and plays a little bit positionally. He's not gonna let Wei Yi get activated, all right? h3, takes. You see very, very boring stuff. I mean, Anish just kind of trying to keep it solid. Whoa, Wei Yi blunders. Wei Yi plays g6. I don't know if this is genius provocation or just a blunder. He just tried to make an innocuous move, and now Anish sacrificing a bishop to rip open the position of Black's king. And what Wei Yi's like, come get some. Come get some. Like he's waving on, his opponent. Queen g6. Anish has 3 pawns for the bishop, but he doesn't have a lot of help. The queen does not have a lot of help in this position, all right? Queen b5. E4. Oh, but now the queen's gonna get some help. Oh yeah. Wei Yi goes counterplay mode. And he's down a minute. He's down a minute on the clock. Rook C7. Trying to protect the 7th rank. E6, that's mate. Queen F7's mate. How do you stop it? Get the bishop out of the way. Just in time. Queen F6. Nope. Anish goes the wrong way. Queen F6 was the way to go. But in this position, you have to find the move F3, which opens bishop H4 and queen to D8. That is very tough to spot. Anish, that's why he goes here. Plays bishop D2, and now Rook G7 would have been the key defensive idea, but Wei Yi goes queen E4, queen F5. And it's still complicated, but all of a sudden the queen is stuck. And now you are in an endgame down a piece. Down a piece is fine when you have a queen against the king with no clothes on. But when the queens are off the board, the bishop is the bishop. A bishop is not worth 3 pawns in an endgame. It's a bishop. 3 is not equal to 3. All right? King F8. Don't ask any questions. Just keep watching the recap. Rook H6. And now, listen, Wei Yi is so good at taking his chances. That pawn is gone. All right, bishop D5. Look at those bishops. Everything is defended. And now it's just about how is Wei Yi going to get into Anish's position to win all his pieces. King E6, bishop D3. Here we go. Rook G8, Rook G4. Slowly, methodically, bishop C4, Rook G4. And there was a chance. I think somewhere Anish could have maybe made a small comeback, but that's it. King A4, Rook B2. Last pawn is falling. And he gets the rook trade. The pawn promotes. And it looks like you get it, but you don't. I sack my bishop. I promote. Wei Yi winning games offensively. Wei Yi winning games defensively. The last one that I have for you is a very fun one. This is also against Arjin Erigaisi. This one was a like a English-ish type of thing, where in this position, very frequently White plays this move G4. It's a very interesting idea, but instead of doing it, he plays bishop E2. And they get a very different type of game. They get a positional game. Rook D1, Knight E4. Very, very, kind of straightforward and positional, but still kind of imbalanced, all right? Which is typical kind of Wei Yi style. Always some sort of flair for the dramatic. Oh, boy. Trying to get something like this going, all right? Trying to get something like this going, trying to open up the position. D4. And watch as Wei Yi literally turns into a steamroller. Okay, you don't have to take my pawn. You go back? No problem. C5. D5, avalanche, like straight down the center of the board. And I mean, the crazy thing is, what were you supposed to do? Apparently, you were supposed to pop out this way. Because now, when I get to D6, there's no bishop to hit. Bishop E4, D6 doesn't work, because now you hit the pawns from the other side. And because Arjun kept going backwards and stumbling backwards from the punches, it's like in fighting, when you're getting punched, you got to defend, but don't go straight back. Because if you go straight back, somebody might go for the takedown. Somebody knows you're predictable, right? You got to circle out. Arjun went straight back, and he gets pushed backwards. Now he tries to pop out. I told you, Wei Yi does not miss his chances. Rook, Queen C6, and now these pawns are just together. And they are going, and the second Arjun goes for counterplay, this opens up the dark square diagonal, and that bishop, oh my. Wei Yi does not miss when he is given an opportunity. Queen F5 check. Queen E4, he picks it all up, and while picking it up, he also guards mate. Rook B1, Queen F3, pawn is on D7, pawn is on C6. You can't even take it. You can't even take it. You move the queen, I take the bishop. You move the rook, I take the bishop because the queen is protecting the bishop. Bishop D6, and at some point, resignation is on the way. That pawn is going to make it to C7. There it is. He is up a full bishop. Arjun continues because it's blitz. You got to continue, but unfortunately, it's just not enough. Rook B7. Neither of the pawns can move. Arjun brings his king, but so does Wei Yi. Rook B4. That's the end. I'm going to get that, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to get this pawn as well. And after 4 days of action, it is actually Wei Yi, 24 years old, re-emerging back onto the professional chess scene. Has not played a huge amount over the last couple of years, but he is winning this event. Now, Magnus is struggling a little bit, and by his standards, he said he sucked. You know what I mean? Like, he's still in second and in contention for first, but it is pretty wild. It is pretty wild, and hey, enjoy him while he's still here. This man plays one tournament every 3 months, and he needs to wake up a little bit and somehow still finds a way to keep doing it. He really is like Djokovic. Like, except in 2024. Djokovic, I know he hasn't won an event yet this year, I think. I haven't checked recently. I saw yesterday a guy hit in the head with a water bottle. Nobody's been doing that to Magnus. But, yeah, kind of nuts, right? So I'm enjoying it while we still can, and it's very cool to see a young, hungry generation that is like hyenas trying to eat the wounded lion. You know what I mean? Anyway, I will let you know what happens tomorrow. Very exciting stuff. Get out of here.